Welcome to the Oracle's Rest, a place where stories unfold slowly, where time softens, and where the mind is free to wander. Tonight, somewhere far out beneath the dark surface of the sea, the largest heart that has ever existed is beating slowly. In the cold, it belongs to a blue whale, the biggest animal ever to have lived on this earth. And tonight we drift down into its world. Tonight you will hear 100 gentle facts about whales, the great giants of the deep ocean, moving softly, one into the next, like slow waves rolling. From far away, there is no need to follow closely. There is no need to remember a single thing. Simply let the great shapes pass through the darkness. Below you, vast and patient and unhurried, while you settle deeper into rest. The whales have been crossing these waters for tens of millions of years, long before there were cities or maps, or any human eyes to watch them. And they will go on crossing them long after this night has faded into morning. Let us begin with the simplest and strangest fact of all. Whales are not fish. They are mammals, like us. Warm-blooded creatures that breathe air, give birth to live young, and feed their babies on milk. A whale must rise to the surface to breathe, just as we must, and it cannot breathe underwater, no matter how deep it dives. Beneath the cold and the salt and the silence, a whale is far more like a human being than like the fish that dart around it. And this leads to something even stranger. The ancestors of whales once walked on land, around 50 million years ago. The creatures that would become whales were four-legged animals living along the edges of ancient shores, wading into the shallows to feed over immense stretches of time, generation after generation. They returned more and more fully to the water. Their legs slowly became fins. Their bodies grew long and smooth, and the sea took them back. The closest living relatives of whales, scientists now believe, are hippopotamuses. The two share an ancient common ancestor, a hoofed animal from the distant past, which is why the enormous whale and the river-dwelling hippo are, in a quiet way, distant cousins. It is a strange thing to imagine that the largest creatures of the open ocean and the heavy grazers of African rivers once branched from the same family long ago. you can still find the trace of that long ago land life hidden inside a whale's body. Deep within the great bulk of many whales lie small, useless bones, floating in the flesh. That are the remnants of hip bones and hind legs their ancestors once walked upon. The legs are gone, but the bones remain, drifting quietly inside the animal as a faint memory of a time when whales had feet and walked beneath the open sky. As whales returned to the sea, their bodies changed in beautiful and practical ways. The nostrils that once sat at the front of the face slowly migrated upward over millions of years, traveling to the very top of the head, where they became the blowhole. And so, a whale can breathe simply by lifting the top of its head above the waves, never needing to raise its whole face from the water, taking a quick breath and slipping down again into the deep. A whale's tail is another quiet sign of its mammal heritage. A fish swims by, moving its tail from side to side, but a whale's broad tail, called the flukes, moves up and down in a powerful rising and falling motion, the same up and down movement of the spine that a running land mammal makes. Watch a whale swim, and you are watching in slow motion beneath the water the gallop of an animal whose ancestors once ran. On land, whales are divided into two great families. The first are the baleen whales, the gentle giants that have no teeth at all. In place of teeth, their upper jaws hold long fringed plates called baleen, made of the same material as our fingernails and hair, a tough substance called keratin. Through these plates, the whale strains its food from the sea, gulping enormous mouthfuls of water and pushing it back out, trapping tiny creatures behind the comb-like fringe. The second great family are the toothed whales, which, as the name suggests, do have teeth. This group includes the sperm whale, the orca, the narwhal, the beluga, and also all the dolphins and porpoises. For dolphins are, in truth, small toothed whales. The toothed whales tend to be hunters, chasing fish and squid, and they share a remarkable gift that the baleen whales do not have, the gift of seeing the world through sound. The very largest of all the whales, and the largest animal known ever to have lived, is the blue whale. A great blue whale can grow to around 30 meters in length, longer than 3 large buses placed end to end, and can weigh as much as 150 tons or more. No dinosaur that we have ever found bones of was as large and as heavy as a full-grown blue whale gliding through the cold waters of the open sea. The scale of a blue whale is difficult for the mind to hold. Its heart alone can weigh as much as a small car, somewhere around 200 kilograms, and it beats slowly, sometimes only a few times each minute. When the whale is diving deep, its great blood vessels are so wide that it is often said a small child could crawl through the largest of them. Everything about this animal is built on a scale that dwarfs almost everything else alive. A blue whale's tongue alone can weigh as much as an elephant. Its mouth, when it opens to feed, can take in a volume of water greater than the whale's own body, stretching wide thanks to the great pleated grooves that run along its throat. And yet, for all this size, the blue whale feeds almost entirely on one of the smallest creatures in the sea, a tiny shrimp-like animal called krill, no longer than a fingertip. To sustain such a body, a blue whale may eat several tons of krill in a single day during the feeding season, gathering vast swarms of the little creatures and swallowing them by the millions. It is one of the great quiet wonders of nature that the biggest animal on earth is built almost entirely from one of the smallest. The giant and the tiny bound together in the cold and fertile waters near the poles. A blue whale's call is among the loudest sounds made by any animal. Their low moans can reach a volume far greater than a jet engine heard up close. And because low sounds travel so well through water, these calls may carry for hundreds of miles. Through the deep, two blue whales, separated by a vast stretch of ocean, may still be able to hear one another, calling slowly back and forth. Across distances no human voice could ever bridge. A newborn blue whale is already among the largest animals in the sea. A blue whale calf is born around 7 meters long and weighs several tons at birth. It drinks its mother's milk, and that milk is extraordinarily rich, so rich and fatty that the calf can gain around 90 kilograms in weight every single day in its first months of life. It grows almost as you watch, swelling on the thick milk into a giant of its own. Whale milk, in fact, is unlike the milk of land animals. It can be nearly half fat, with the thick consistency of toothpaste or soft butter, which keeps it from simply dissolving and washing away. In the water as the calf nurses, the mother does not so much let the calf suckle, gently as press the rich milk into its mouth. On this dense and powerful food, the young whale builds the thick layer of fat it will need to survive the cold seas. That layer of fat is called blubber, and it is one of the keys to a whale's life in the cold. Blubber is a thick layer of fatty tissue beneath the skin that insulates the whale against the chill of the deep ocean, the way a warm coat holds in our own heat. It also stores energy so that a whale can live for months on its blubber alone during the long seasons when it does not feed, and it helps the great body keep its smooth, streamlined shape. Now, let us turn to one of the most beloved of all the whales, the humpback. The humpback whale is famous above all for its song. Male humpbacks sing long, complex, haunting songs that can last for many minutes and be repeated for hours on end, rising and falling through moans, cries, and low rumbles. These are among the most elaborate songs in all the animal kingdom, and we still do not fully understand everything they mean. The songs of the humpback are not fixed. They change over time. All the males in one ocean population tend to sing the same song in a given season, but slowly, year by year, the song shifts and evolves, with new phrases added and old ones dropped. And remarkably, a new song can spread across the ocean, from one population to another, traveling like a slow cultural fashion, so that a tune born among whales near one coast may, seasons later, be heard far away. Only the male humpbacks are known to sing these full songs, and they sing them most often in the breeding grounds, which has led many scientists to think the songs play a part in courtship and in display among males. A singing humpback often hangs motionless in the water, head down, pouring out its long song into the blue. The sound travels far, and other whales, near and far, move through a sea quietly filled with music. The humpback also has the longest flippers, or pectoral fins, of any whale, relative to its body. These long, wing-like fins can be nearly a third of the whale's entire body length, pale and graceful, and the whale uses them to steer, to turn sharply, and even, some think, to herd its prey. The scientific name of the humpback means, roughly, big-winged New Englander, a nod to these great wings of flesh. Humpbacks are also famous for breaching, the spectacular act of hurling their enormous bodies clear out of the water and crashing back down in a great explosion of spray. No one is entirely sure why they do it. It may be a form of communication, the loud splash carrying far through the water. It may help shed parasites from the skin, or it may simply be something the whales do. A leap of a 40-ton animal into the open air. One of the most astonishing things humpbacks do is a kind of group hunting called bubble net feeding. A team of whales dives beneath a school of small fish and swims in a slow spiral, blowing a rising curtain of bubbles that surrounds and confuses the fish, herding them into a tight, panicked ball. Then the whales surge upward through the center together, mouths open, swallowing great mouthfuls of the trapped fish. It is cooperation on a vast and patient scale. Humpbacks make one of the longest migrations of any mammal on Earth. Some travel around 16,000 kilometers in a year, journeying between cold polar feeding grounds where the food is rich and warm tropical waters where they breed and give birth. They swim these immense distances year after year, navigating across open ocean with a sureness we still do not fully understand, returning to the same waters their kind have used for countless generations. During the breeding season in warm waters, the great baleen whales like the humpback usually do not feed at all. There is little for them to eat in the warm tropics, so they live entirely off their blubber, fasting for months while they court, mate, give birth, and nurse their young. A mother humpback may produce hundreds of liters of rich milk each day for her calf, while eating nothing herself, slowly using up the fat she stored in the cold seas far away. Now we descend into deeper and darker water to meet the sperm whale, the largest of all the toothed whales and one of the most remarkable animals alive. A male sperm whale can reach around 20 meters in length, with a vast, square head that makes up nearly a third of its body. It is the whale of old sailors' tales, the great whale of the story of Moby Dick, a deep diving hunter of the open ocean's darkest depths. The sperm whale has the largest brain of any animal that has ever lived on Earth. A sperm whale's brain can weigh around 8 kilograms, far heavier than the brain of any other creature, several times the weight of a human brain. What goes on within that vast mind we can only guess at. But the sperm whale lives a long and socially complex life, and its great brain hints at depths of awareness we are only beginning to imagine. The sperm whale is the deepest diving of all the whales, and one of the deepest diving animals of any kind. It can plunge down 2,000 meters or more, perhaps as deep as 3,000 meters in some cases, into a world of total darkness and crushing pressure. On a single breath, a sperm whale may stay below for an hour or more, sometimes approaching 90 minutes, before rising slowly back toward the distant light of the surface. In that dark and pressing deep, the sperm whale hunts squid, including the giant squid and even the rarely seen colossal squid. The whales sometimes bear round scars on their skin from the suckers of these great squid, the marks of struggles in the lightless depths that no human eye has ever witnessed. Down there, where no sunlight reaches, the largest toothed predator and the largest squid meet in silence, far below the waves. The great square head of the sperm whale is filled with a waxy substance called spermaceti, held in a vast organ that may help the whale with buoyancy and, above all, with sound. For the sperm whale, like all toothed whales, finds its way and its prey through echolocation, sending out powerful clicks of sound and listening for the echoes that bounce back from the world around it. In the darkness of the deep, the whale sees with sound. The clicks of a sperm whale are thought to be the loudest sounds made by any animal on Earth, focused through the great head. These clicks are powerful enough that the whale can detect a squid far off in the black water, building a picture of its surroundings from the returning echoes. Some scientists believe the clicks may even be strong enough to stun or disorient prey, though this is still debated. Either way, the sperm whale's voice is a tool of astonishing power. Sperm whales live in close, lasting social groups. Females and their young travel together in family units, sometimes joined into larger gatherings, while the older males often roam more widely and alone. Within these groups, sperm whales use patterns of clicks called codas, almost like a kind of dialect, and different clans of sperm whales across the ocean use different patterns. They appear to recognize one another and to belong by the rhythm of their clicking speech. Sperm whales sleep in one of the strangest ways in all of nature. They have been seen drifting in the water in groups, completely still and upright, hanging vertically near the surface with their heads pointing up or down like great logs standing in the sea. In these short, quiet rests, the whales float motionless together in the blue, sleeping in brief stretches, suspended in the water in silent vertical clusters. There is one more curious thing tied to the sperm whale, a strange and precious substance called ambergris. Occasionally, a sperm whale produces this waxy material in its gut, and lumps of it, aged by long floating in the sea, have for centuries been treasured by perfume makers for their rich and lasting scent, found washed up on a beach. A piece of ambergris was once worth a small fortune, a strange gift drifting in from the deep. Now let us rise back toward the lighter waters and meet the orca, the killer whale. Despite the fearsome name, the orca is not truly a whale of the great baleen kind at all. It is, in fact, the largest member of the dolphin family, a giant dolphin and a toothed whale, glossy black and white, intelligent, powerful, and found in every ocean on Earth, from the warm equator to the edge of the polar ice. Orcas are among the most successful predators in the sea, sitting at the very top of the ocean food chain. The name killer whale likely came from old sailors who saw them hunting other whales, calling them whale killers, a name that over time was simply turned around. Orcas hunt fish, seals, sharks, and sometimes even the great whales, working together in coordinated groups with a skill and patience that is remarkable to witness. Orcas live in tight family groups called pods, and these pods are among the most stable and devoted family units in the animal world. In many populations, the pod is led by the oldest female, The matriarch and her children and grandchildren may stay with her for their whole lives. Sons, in some orca families, remain at their mother's side until she dies, a lifelong bond between mother and child, rare among animals. Different orca groups have developed different ways of life, almost like different cultures. Some specialize in hunting fish, others in hunting seals or other mammals, and these groups have distinct calls, distinct hunting methods, and even distinct diets, passed down from generation to generation by learning rather than instinct. Orcas in different regions speak in different dialects, and a calf learns the calls of its own family, growing up into the particular traditions of its pod. Now we travel north into the cold and the ice to meet the narwhal, one of the strangest and most beautiful of all the whales. The narwhal is a medium-sized toothed whale of the high Arctic, and the male carries a single, long, straight, spiraled tusk that can grow to around 3 meters in length, jutting forward from its head. For centuries, this tusk was the source of the legend of the unicorn. That tusk is, in truth, a tooth. It is an enormously elongated tooth, usually the left one, that grows out through the narwhal's lip and twists in a graceful spiral as it lengthens. Most often, only the males grow a long tusk, though some females grow a small one, and a few rare males grow too. In medieval times, traders sold these tusks as the horns of unicorns, and kings paid great sums believing in their magic. Scientists have found that the narwhal's tusk is not a dead spike, but a living, sensitive organ, threaded with millions of tiny nerve endings that may let the whale sense the saltiness, temperature, and pressure of the water around it. Narwhals have been seen using their tusks to tap and stun fish before eating them. What looks like a simple lance is, in fact, a delicate instrument feeling its way through the cold Arctic Sea. Close cousin to the narwhal is the beluga, the small white whale of the Arctic and subarctic seas. Belugas are born grey and slowly turn a pure, pale white as they grow older, until a full-grown beluga gleams almost ghostly against the dark water and the ice. They are highly social, gathering in groups, and they have rounded, gentle-looking heads that set them apart from all other whales. The beluga is sometimes called the canary of the sea, for it is among the most vocal of all whales. Belugas produce an astonishing range of chirps, whistles, clicks, squeals, and trills, so loud and varied that early sailors could hear them through the hulls of their ships. Unlike most whales, the beluga can also change the shape of the rounded bulge on its forehead, called the melon, squeezing and bulging it, almost as if making expressions. The beluga has another unusual gift. Unlike most whales, whose neck bones are fused into a stiff column for streamlined swimming, the beluga's neck vertebrae are not fused, which means it can turn and nod its head from side to side and up and down. This gives the beluga a strange, almost human flexibility, able to look around itself and to turn its gaze, a small and gentle freedom that other whales do not have. Now, let us return to the baleen giants and meet a few more of these gentle leviathans. The fin whale is the second largest animal on Earth, after only the blue whale, reaching lengths of around 25 meters. It is long and sleek and built for speed, so fast through the water that it earned the old nickname, the greyhound of the sea, slipping through the open ocean with surprising swiftness for so enormous a creature. The fin whale carries one of the oddest markings in all the animal world. Its coloring is asymmetrical, meaning the two sides of its head are different colors. The lower jaw is dark on the left side, but bright white on the right side. No one is entirely certain why, but it may have to do with how the whale circles its prey while feeding, the pale side perhaps helping to startle and herd fish. As it turns, it is a quiet asymmetry, rare among large animals. Then there is the grey whale, a whale of the shallows and the coast, famous for its long migration along the western shores of North America. Unlike most whales, the grey whale feeds mainly on the bottom of the sea, rolling onto its side and scooping up great mouthfuls of mud from the seafloor, then straining out the small creatures that live in the sediment. Its skin is often crusted with barnacles and pale patches, giving it a mottled, ancient look. Grey whales were once called devilfish by old whalers because Mother Greys fought so fiercely to protect their calves. And yet today, in the quiet, calving lagoons of Baja California, Grey whale mothers sometimes bring their calves right up to small boats, seeming almost curious, even gentle, allowing people to reach out and touch them. The same animal that once fought for its young now, in these protected waters, approaches us softly of its own accord. Far to the north lives the bowhead whale, a great whale of the Arctic ice, and one of the most extraordinary animals on earth. When it comes to age, the bowhead is believed to be the longest lived of all mammals, with some individuals thought to live more than 200 years. A bowhead alive in the cold seas today may have been born before many of the cities we know were ever built, swimming quietly beneath the ice across 2 centuries. The bowhead is superbly built for its frozen home. It has the thickest blubber of any whale, a layer of fat that can be more than half a meter thick, wrapping it against the brutal Arctic cold. And its massive, powerfully built head can break up through sea ice nearly half a meter thick, letting the whale surface to breathe in a frozen world. It has no dorsal fin, the better to move beneath the ice without obstruction. The bowhead also has the largest mouth of any animal, an enormous bowed jaw that gives the whale its name. Within that great mouth hang the longest baleen plates of any whale, some reaching 4 meters in length, a vast curtain of fine fringe through which the bowhead strains tiny creatures from the cold water. It feeds slowly and patiently, skimming through clouds of small prey beneath the Arctic light. Among the baleen whales are also the right whales, named, sadly, by the whalers who considered them the right whales to hunt, because they swim slowly, float when killed, and yield much oil. Right whales are large and rounded, with no dorsal fin, and their heads are marked with rough patches of hardened skin called callosities, each pattern unique, so that researchers can tell one right whale from another by the markings on its head, as if by a fingerprint. The smallest of the baleen whales is the minke whale, modest in size compared to its giant relatives, reaching perhaps 8 or 10 meters. Minke whales are sleek and curious, sometimes approaching boats, and they are among the most numerous of the baleen whales. They remind us that not every whale is a colossus, that the great family of baleen whales ranges from the unimaginable bulk of the blue whale down to these smaller, swifter cousins. Let us pause now and think about how whales move through their world, for the body of a whale is a marvel of design. Beneath the skin, a whale's front flippers still contain the bones of a hand, the same arrangement of finger bones that our own hands hold, hidden now within a smooth paddle of flesh. The whale steers and turns with these flippers, the long ago hand of a land animal reshaped into a fin. A whale breathes through its blowhole, and when it surfaces and exhales, it sends up a spout, the misty plume we see rising from the sea. That spout is not water from the sea, as people once thought, but the whale's warm breath meeting the cooler air and condensing into mist, mixed with a little moisture. Different whales have differently shaped spouts, and an experienced eye can name a whale from far away simply by the shape of its breath upon the air. Baleen whales have two blowholes set side by side, while toothed whales have only one. So, the blue whale and the humpback breathe through a paired blowhole, and the spout of a great blue whale can rise 9 meters or more into the air, a tall, straight column visible from a great distance. The sperm whale, a toothed whale, breathes through a single blowhole set off to the left of its head, sending its spout forward and to the side at an angle. Whales cannot breathe automatically the way we do, without thinking. A whale's breathing is under its conscious control. Every breath a deliberate act. This is why a whale cannot fall fully asleep, as we do. For if it lost consciousness completely, it would stop breathing and drown. And so, whales have found another way to rest. One of the most remarkable solutions in the whole of the animal world. A whale sleeps with only half of its brain at a time. One half of the brain rests, while the other half stays awake, keeping the whale breathing and watching for danger. And then the two halves switch. In this way, a whale is never fully unconscious, always partly awake, always able to rise and breathe. Sometimes whales rest by floating quietly at the surface, motionless, a behavior gently called logging, because the still whale looks like a drifting log. Upon the sea, the eyes of a whale are set on the sides of the head, one looking out to each side. And a whale's vision underwater is reasonably good, though for the toothed whales sound matters far more than sight. The great baleen whales have relatively small eyes for such enormous bodies, and in the dark or murky depths, vision can only do so much. It is sound more than light that fills a whale's understanding of the sea. Sound is the great medium of the whale's world. For sound travels far better through water than through air, moving several times faster and carrying over enormous distances. This is why whales rely so heavily on hearing and on voice. The low calls of the great baleen whales may travel across whole ocean basins, and in this way the sea, which looks so silent from above, is in truth filled with a constant, distant murmur of whale voices passing through the deep. The toothed whales, as we have seen, use echolocation, sending out clicks and reading the echoes, and the organ they use to focus these sounds is called the melon, a rounded mass of fatty tissue in the forehead. The whale shapes and aims its clicks. Through the melon, the way a lens focuses light, building a detailed picture of the world from returning sound. A dolphin or a sperm whale can, in this way, sense the size, shape, and even the inner structure of objects in complete darkness. Whales must navigate across vast and featureless stretches of open ocean, and how they find their way remains partly a mystery. They may use the Earth's magnetic field, the position of the sun and stars, the taste and temperature of the water, the shape of the seafloor far below, and above all their own long memory, learned over years and passed down through generations of the great roads of migration that their kind have always followed. Let us think about what whales eat, for it shapes everything about their lives. The baleen whales mostly feed on the smallest creatures of the sea, the tiny shrimp-like krill and the even smaller drifting animals called copepods, along with small schooling fish. They gather these in enormous numbers, for it takes a vast quantity of tiny food to fuel so great a body. The richest feeding grounds are in the cold waters, near the poles, where the sea teems with life in the long days of summer. The way a great baleen whale feeds is one of the most dramatic events in nature, though it unfolds in slow silence beneath the surface. A lunge-feeding whale accelerates toward a swarm of krill or a school of fish and opens its enormous mouth, and the pleated grooves along its throat balloon outward, letting it engulf a volume of water and prey that can be greater than its own body weight in a single gulp. Then it slowly pushes the water out through the baleen, swallowing what remains. The toothed whales, by contrast, are hunters of larger single prey, chasing down fish and squid one by one, or in coordinated groups. The orca hunts seals and fish and even other whales. The sperm whale hunts squid in the deep. The dolphins chase schools of fish near the surface, where the baleen whale filters the small from the sea by the millions. The toothed whale pursues, catches, and seizes, using its teeth and its speed and its cleverness. There is a quiet wonder in the fact that whales rarely, if ever, drink seawater. They get the water their bodies need from their food, from the fish and squid and krill they eat, and from the breakdown of their own fat. To drink the salty sea would do more harm than good. So, the whale, surrounded by an entire ocean of water, takes almost none of it in, drawing its moisture instead from the flesh of the creatures it eats. A whale's skin is smooth and often carries passengers. Barnacles fix themselves to the skin of slow-moving whales, like the grey and the humpback, riding along for free, filtering food from the water as the whale swims. Tiny, pale creatures called whale lice cluster in the folds and around the wounds and callosities, and many whales regularly shed the outer layer of their skin, sloughing it off to keep clean and smooth, the old skin drifting away into the sea. When a great whale dies and its body sinks to the bottom of the sea, it becomes something extraordinary, a gift to the deep called a whale fall. The enormous body, sinking into the cold and dark, becomes a feast and a home for a whole community of deep sea creatures, sometimes for decades. First, the scavengers come, then smaller creatures pick the bones, and at last special bacteria live on the skeleton itself. In the food-poor depths, one whale's death can sustain life for a generation. Whales matter to the whole living ocean in ways that reach far beyond their own bodies. When whales feed in the deep and rise to release their waste near the surface, they bring up nutrients, especially iron, that fertilize the sunlit waters where tiny plants of the sea, the phytoplankton, grow. These phytoplankton feed the entire ocean food web and produce much of the oxygen in the air. In this quiet way, the great whales help to garden the sea itself. And because whales store so much carbon in their massive bodies over their long lives, and because they nourish the plankton that draw carbon from the air, the great whales play a gentle role in steadying the balance of the whole planet's climate. A single great whale living out its long life and slowly sinking at its end carries a great store of carbon down into the deep. With it, the giants of the sea are, in their slow way, keepers of a far larger balance. The word whale, in many old languages, was bound up with the idea of something vast and wondrous, and the scientific name for the whole group, the cetaceans, comes from an ancient Greek word, katos, meaning a great sea creature or sea monster to the people of long ago. The whale was the very image of the immense and the unknowable, a living mountain moving through the water, glimpsed only in the rising of its back and the falling of its tail. For most of human history, people knew whales mostly from the shore, from rare glimpses, from the great bodies that sometimes washed up on beaches, and from the tales of sailors. Whales appeared in the myths and stories of many peoples, sometimes as monsters, sometimes as the bearers of the world, sometimes as wise and ancient beings of the deep. The sight of a whale reaching far out at sea has stirred wonder in human hearts for as long as there have been people to watch. There came a long and sorrowful chapter when whales were hunted across the world's oceans in such numbers that many kinds were brought to the very edge of vanishing. Their oil-lit lamps and their bodies were rendered for 100 uses, and the great populations that had filled the seas for ages grew thin and quiet. It is a heavy part of the story, and one worth remembering gently, for it reminds us how fragile even the mightiest creatures can be. But the story does not end there. In more recent times, much of the world agreed to stop the hunting of the great whales, and slowly, patiently, some of the whale populations have begun to recover. Humpbacks have returned to waters where they had nearly disappeared. Blue whales, though still rare, are seen again in places that had fallen silent. The seas are filling, here and there, with the old songs once more, a quiet healing across the generations. Let us return for a while to the long story of how whales came to be, for it is one of the most remarkable tales in all of nature. Among the earliest of the whale ancestors was a creature scientists call Pachycetus, a four-legged, wolf-sized animal that lived near ancient shores around 50 million years ago. It looked nothing like a whale, and yet hidden in the structure of its ears was a feature found in whales, and nowhere else, the first faint sign of the giants to come. After Pachycetus came creatures that lived more and more in the water. One, known as Ambulocetus, the walking whale, was a long, otter-like animal that could move both on land and in the shallows, swimming with an up and down motion of its spine, the same motion that whales use today. Later, still came Basilosaurus, a long serpentine sea creature that lived fully in the ocean, yet still carried tiny, perfectly formed hind legs, far too small to walk upon. The last legs the whale line would ever have. A whale's connection to its land-dwelling past lingers in many quiet details of its body. A whale has no external ears, no flaps on the sides of its head as we have, for such ears would only slow it in the water. Instead, sound travels to a whale's inner ears through special channels, and in toothed whales, largely through the lower jaw, which receives the vibrations of the sea and passes them inward. The whale, in a sense, hears the ocean through its jaw. There is a charming truth hidden in the way baleen whales are built, despite their enormous mouths. The throat of a great baleen whale is surprisingly narrow, often no wider than a melon or a beach ball. A blue whale, for all its vastness, could not swallow anything much larger than the small krill and fish it feeds upon. The old tales of whales swallowing whole men belong to legend, for the giant filter feeders are simply not built to take in such large prey among the baleen whales. It is the females who are the larger sex, growing bigger than the males. The opposite of what we see in many animals on land. The very largest blue whales ever measured were females, and a mother whale's great size helps her carry and nourish her enormous calf and survive the long, fasting months of breeding and nursing. In the world of the great whales, it is the mothers who are the true giants A whale must hold its breath through every dive, and its body is wonderfully made for this. A diving whale slows its heartbeat dramatically, sometimes to only a handful of beats each minute, and sends its blood mainly to the heart and brain, sparing oxygen. Whale muscle is dark and rich, with a substance called myoglobin, which stores oxygen the way a sponge holds water, so that the muscles carry their own private supply down into the deep to survive the crushing pressure of a deep dive. A whale's lungs and rib cage are built to fold and collapse safely as it descends, squeezing the air into the parts of the body where it can do no harm. In this way, the whale avoids the dangerous bubbles that can sicken a human diver who rises too fast. The whale's whole body is shaped, down to its bones and lungs, for a life of plunging into the deep and returning unharmed. When a baleen whale calf is born, it comes into the world tail first, an unusual way to be born among mammals, but a vital one for a creature born underwater. Being born tail first means the calf's head emerges last, so it does not begin to breathe before it is free of its mother and able to rise. The moment it is born, the mother gently nudges her newborn upward to the surface, helping it take its very first breath of air. Whales show a whole vocabulary of movements at the surface, each with its own name. When a whale lifts its head straight up out of the water to look around, peering above the surface as if to take in the world, it is called spy hopping. When a whale slaps its great tail flukes down upon the water again and again, sending up booming splashes, it is called lobtailing. And when a whale raises its tail high into the air as it begins a deep dive, it is called fluking. For the humpback whale, that raised tail is like a face. The underside of each humpback's flukes carries a unique pattern of black and white markings, as individual as a human fingerprint. And researchers around the world identify and follow particular whales for decades simply by photographing their tails. Through these patterns, single humpbacks have been tracked across whole oceans and, across the years, their long lives slowly revealed by the markings on their tails. The age of a whale, too, can be read from its body in surprising ways. In some baleen whales, a plug of waxy material builds up in the ear over a lifetime, laid down in layers like the rings of a tree. one pair of light and dark bands each year. By counting these layers, scientists can read a whale's age, and even in the chemistry of the wax, the rhythms of stress and hormones across its whole life, a hidden diary held within the ear. The name of the sperm whale comes from a misunderstanding of long ago. Early whalers, finding the great head full of a fine white waxy oil, mistook it for the seed of the animal and called it spermaceti, and the name stuck, though the substance has nothing to do with reproduction at all. This spermaceti oil was once among the most prized of all whale products, burned in lamps and made into fine candles. That gave a clean, bright light. The sperm whale holds another record among animals. The clicking calls it makes for echolocation are produced in the great head by forcing air through a structure that works almost like a vast nose, and the sound is then focused forward through the spermaceti organ. The whole front of the whale's enormous head is, in effect, a giant instrument for making and aiming sound, the largest such sound-making structure in all the natural world. Among the right whales, there is a fact almost too large to believe. The right whale has the largest testes of any animal on Earth. Together, weighing as much as a small car, around a ton in total. This points to a world of quiet competition beneath the waves, where males do not so much fight over females as compete in other ways, a hidden contest among the slow-moving giants of the cold seas. The fin whale and its swift relatives are the racers of the whale world. A fin whale can swim at speeds approaching 40 kilometers an hour in short bursts, remarkable for an animal 25 meters long. Its close cousin, the sei whale, is faster still. Over short distances, one of the swiftest of all the great whales. These long, slender whales are built like living torpedoes, slicing through the open ocean with an ease that belies their enormous size. In the warm and temperate seas lives the bride's whale, a baleen whale of gentler climates that, unlike most of its relatives, does not make the long migrations to polar waters. It stays in warmer seas all year round, finding its food where it lives. It reminds us that the family of whales has spread into every kind of water, from the warm equator to the frozen poles. each kind shaped to the sea it calls home. There is a famous and haunting story in the world of whale science, the story of a single whale that sings at an unusual pitch, around 52 hertz, far higher than the calls of the blue, and fin whales around it. For years, its lone voice has been tracked, moving through the Pacific. And because no other whale seems to answer at that frequency, it became known as the loneliest whale in the world. Whether it is truly alone or simply different, no one can say. The grey whale undertakes one of the longest migrations of any mammal on Earth, travelling many thousands of kilometres each year along the coast, between its cold northern feeding grounds and its warm southern breeding lagoons. A small population of grey whales in the western Pacific has been tracked on journeys that span even greater distances, crossing whole oceans, a round trip among the very longest known of any animal that breathes air. Belugas have a gift for mimicry that has astonished those who study them. There are records of belugas imitating the rhythm and pitch of human speech, and one famous captive beluga produced sounds so like a person talking that divers in the water with him once surfaced, convinced a human had told them to get out. The white whale, the canary of the sea, seems to listen to the world around it and to try, in its own way, to echo what it hears. The orca, the great dolphin, is one of the very few animals besides humans known to go through menopause, with older females living long past the years when they bear young. These grandmother orcas become the keepers of their family's knowledge, remembering where to find food in lean times and leading their pods through difficulty. The wisdom of the oldest mothers becomes, in the orca world, a treasure that helps the whole family survive. Some orca matriarchs are thought to live 80 or 90 years, perhaps even longer, guiding several generations of their descendants. A pod led by such an ancient female holds a living library of all she has learned across her long life, the routes and the seasons and the ways of the hunt. When she finally dies, her family loses not only a mother, but a memory, a depth of experience built up over the better part of a century. There is a small, clarifying truth worth sharing on a quiet night, for it puzzles many people. The whale shark, despite its name, is not a whale at all. It is a fish, the largest fish in the sea, a giant, gentle filter feeder, but a true fish that breathes through gills, and is no relation to the whales. The word whale in its name speaks only to its great size. The true whales remain the air-breathing mammals, warm-blooded and nursing their young. Dolphins, those small and clever whales, sleep much as their giant relatives do, resting one half of the brain at a time. And often they rest with one eye open and one eye closed, the open eye on the side of the waking half of the brain. In this way, a dolphin can keep watch on its companions and its surroundings even as it rests, drifting half awake through the gentle water, never fully losing its hold on the world. The toothed whales send out their echolocation clicks at an astonishing rate, sometimes hundreds of clicks each second as they close in on prey. The stream of clicks blurring into a buzz from the pattern of echoes returning from each click. The whale builds a constantly updating picture of the moving fish ahead of it, tracking its prey through darkness or murk with a precision that no eye could match. It is a way of seeing the world that we can only imagine. Barnacles ride upon the slow whales in great numbers, and on a single humpback, the weight of all its barnacles can come to hundreds of kilograms. These barnacles do the whale no real harm, taking only a free ride and a place to filter their own tiny food from the passing water. Each barnacle began life as a drifting larva that found the whale's skin and settled there, building its little shell upon a moving mountain of flesh. When a humpback hangs in the water to sing, it often takes up a particular posture, head angled downward, body still, the great fins held out, and pours its song into the sea for many minutes before rising to breathe, and then returning to the same place to sing again. A single whale may sing in this way for hours, and in the breeding grounds, many males may be singing at once, filling whole stretches of warm ocean with overlapping song. The blubber that keeps a whale warm also serves it in the long fasting seasons as a vast store of food, and a whale may lose a great deal of its body weight over the months when it does not eat, slowly drawing down the fat it built up in the rich polar waters. By the time it returns to the feeding grounds, a whale may be lean and hungry, ready to begin again the great work of gathering food and rebuilding the warm and life-giving layer beneath its skin. The smallest members of the whale family include the porpoises, gentle and shy relatives of the dolphins, and among them is the vaquita, a tiny porpoise of warm northern waters that is among the rarest creatures in the sea, smaller and more retiring than the dolphins. The porpoises remind us once more of the great range of the whale family, from the unimaginable blue whale down to a porpoise small enough to cradle, all of them kin beneath the waves. For all our study, the deep life of the whale remains largely hidden. From us, we see only the surface, the rising back, the lifted tail, the breath upon the air, while the true life of the whale unfolds far below, in the dark and the cold, beyond our reach. Most of what a whale does, it does where we cannot follow. And so even now, after all our watching, the great whales keep many of their secrets, moving through a world that is almost entirely their own. Let us gather a few more gentle wonders before the night grows deep. The blue whale's low, pulsing call is so deep that much of it lies below the range of human hearing, felt almost more than heard, a vast, slow throb moving through the water. When researchers first recorded these sounds and sped them up, they discovered a whole hidden language of the deep that had been passing, unheard by us, through the oceans all along. Some scientists have noticed that the deep calls of blue whales around the world have been slowly dropping in pitch over the decades, growing gradually lower year by year, for reasons no one yet fully understands. It may be tied to the recovery of their numbers or to changes in the sea. Whatever the cause, it means the great whales are, in a sense, slowly changing their song across the span of a human lifetime. The music of the deep shifting beneath the waves. The brains of whales and dolphins contain special cells called spindle neurons, the same kind of cells linked in humans to social awareness, emotion, and intuition. Whales have these cells in great numbers, and in some species even more than we do. This is one of many hints that the inner lives of whales may be rich and deep, full of feeling and connection and memory in ways we are only beginning to respect and understand. Whales show many signs of deep social bonds and even of grief. Mother whales have been seen carrying their dead calves with them for days, unwilling to let them go, supporting the small bodies at the surface in what looks, to any watching human, very much like mourning. They travel in families. They help one another. They cooperate in the hunt and in defense. And the ties that bind a pod or a family of whales together can last for many years. There are even stories of whales showing what looks like kindness across the boundaries of species. Humpback whales have been recorded coming to the defense of seals and other animals being hunted by orcas, placing their great bodies between the hunters and the hunted, lifting threatened seals out of the water on their flippers. Why they do this, we cannot fully say, but it is a haunting and gentle thing to witness. A giant of the sea sheltering a smaller creature. The pilot whale, despite its name, is another large member of the dolphin family. A toothed whale that travels in tight and devoted groups. Pilot whales are so strongly bound to one another that where one goes, the others follow, which is part of why they sometimes strand together in large numbers on a beach. Their loyalty is total, and the same powerful bond that holds them together in the open sea can lead them, tragically, into the shallows as one. Dolphins, the small toothed whales, are famous for their intelligence and their playfulness, riding the bow waves of ships, leaping in the spray, and seeming to delight in the sheer joy of movement. They live in groups. They use tools. They call to one another with whistles that may serve almost as names, each dolphin recognized by its own signature sound. In the dolphin we see, in a smaller and quicker form, the same gifts that run through all the whale family. The orca, the great dolphin, has perhaps the most varied diet of any animal in the sea, with different groups specializing so completely that they almost never overlap. Some eat only fish, some eat only marine mammals, some, in distant southern seas, have learned to hunt by washing seals off floating ice with carefully made waves, working together, the technique passed down from mother to calf as a kind of inherited craft across the wide oceans. The great whales follow the seasons. In the long, bright summer of the polar seas, They gather where the cold water brims with krill and small fish, feeding hour after hour, building up their stores of blubber. Then, as the polar winter approaches, many of them turn and travel toward the warmer waters of lower latitudes, where they will breed and bear their young, living off the fat they have stored before turning back again toward the ice. There is a remarkable proof of the bowhead whale's great age that came to light when old stone and ivory harpoon points were found embedded in the blubber of living whales, weapons of a kind not used for more than a century. A whale carrying such an ancient point in its flesh must have survived a hunt generations ago and swum on for 100 years and more, a living witness to a world long past, still moving quietly beneath the northern ice. The narwhal's spiraled tusk so captured the human imagination that, for centuries, these tusks were among the most valuable objects in Europe, believed to be the horns of unicorns and credited with the power to detect or cure poison. It is said that one such tusk was valued at more than its weight in gold, and that a great spiraled tusk was set among the treasures of kings and queens, prized as a wonder from a creature few had ever seen. When whales come unexpectedly to shore and cannot return to the sea, what we call a stranding, it has puzzled and saddened people for as long as we have watched the whales. The causes are many and not fully understood, from illness to confusion of the senses, to the powerful bonds that lead social whales to follow a single distressed leader onto the sand. People have long gathered on beaches to try to ease stranded whales back into the water, drawn by an old instinct of care toward these great fellow creatures. Among the small marks that whales carry are round, clean-edged scars left by a small, deep-sea creature called the cookie-cutter shark, which takes a neat, circular bite from the skin of larger animals and slips away. Many whales bear these pale, round scars across their bodies, the healed signatures of countless tiny encounters in the dark. Each scar is a small story written on the whale's skin of the hidden, teeming life of the sea through which it moves. Even the tears of a whale are suited to the sea. A whale's eyes are bathed in a thick, oily film rather than the watery tears we know, a slippery layer that protects the eye from the salt and the cold and the rush of the passing water. The whale does not weep as we do, but its eyes are kept safe and clear by this gentle oil, gazing out on each side into the blue immensity of its world. In the far southern seas, certain orcas have perfected one of the most astonishing hunting techniques in all the ocean. Spotting a seal resting on a floating sheet of ice, a group of orcas will swim together in a line and dive in unison, creating a single powerful wave that sweeps over the ice and washes the seal into the water. The whales coordinate the wave with great care, and the skill is taught by the older whales to the young, a craft passed down through the family. The song of a humpback is built with a structure that scientists compare to music or even to language. The smallest sounds are gathered into phrases. The phrases are repeated to form themes, and the themes are sung in a particular order to make up the whole song, which the whale then repeats again from the beginning. A full song cycle may last many minutes, and a whale may sing cycle after cycle for hours, the great composition unfolding slowly in the warm water. Dolphins, those quick and clever cousins of the great whales, each develop a special whistle of their own early in life, a signature whistle that works almost like a name. A dolphin will announce itself with this whistle, and other dolphins can copy it, in effect calling one another by name across the water. In the dolphin's world of sound, every individual carries its own small melody, known to its friends and family throughout its life. For people all along the world's coasts, whales have been woven into culture and story since the most ancient times. Coastal peoples carved whales into wood and stone, told of them in their oldest legends, and built parts of their lives around the seasons of the whales. To many, the whale was a being of power and even of kinship, a great spirit of the sea. And the respect for whales runs deep in the traditions of peoples who have lived beside them for thousands of years. In our own time, the wish to be near whales has turned from hunting to watching, and each year great numbers of people travel to the coasts to see whales in the wild, to glimpse a breaching humpback or the tall spout of a blue whale far out on the water. There is a particular hush that falls over a boat when a great whale rises beside it, a shared moment of awe, the same wonder that the whale has stirred in human hearts. cuts across all the ages. The waste that whales release near the surface is, strange as it may sound, one of the sea's great gifts, for it is rich in iron and nutrients that the tiny plants of the ocean need to grow, where whales feed and gather. The water is enriched, the plankton bloom, and the whole web of ocean life is fed. The great whales, in this quiet way, help to keep the very waters they swim in alive and fertile. A slow and patient gardening of the sea. A whale's heartbeat slows so deeply on a long dive that researchers who have managed to record it were astonished by what they found. In a diving blue whale, the heart may beat just twice a minute at the deepest, slow and enormous, before quickening again as the whale rises and breathes. To imagine that vast heart, the size of a small car, pulsing only twice each minute in the cold and the dark, is to glimpse how strange and how patient the inner life of a whale truly is. A whale's life is measured on a long and patient scale. Many of the great whales live for many decades, some far longer, growing slowly, maturing slowly, raising one calf at a time over years of care. They are not creatures of haste. They move through their lives and their oceans at a deep, unhurried pace. And there is something in that slow rhythm that quiets the human heart simply to think of it. A tempo older and calmer than our own. The baleen that hangs in a great whale's mouth is not a single sheet, but a long row of separate plates, hundreds of them on each side, packed close together like the teeth of a comb. A blue whale may carry several hundred plates on each side of its jaw, each fringed on the inner edge with fine hairs that mat together into a dense filter. Through this living sieve, the whale strains the tiny krill from tons of seawater, keeping the food and letting the sea pour back out. The krill that feed the greatest whales gather in swarms, so vast that they are among the largest gatherings of animal life anywhere on Earth. A single swarm of krill can stretch for great distances and hold many millions of the little creatures, colouring the water red or pink. Taken all together, the krill of the Southern Ocean are thought to weigh more than almost any other kind of animal on the planet, a quiet foundation on which the giants of the sea are built, the wonder of the whale fall, the long afterlife of a whale's body on the seafloor, was only truly discovered by scientists a few decades ago, when a deep sea vessel chanced upon a whale skeleton on the bottom, teeming with strange life. Researchers found that a whale fall passes through stages over the years, first feeding the scavengers, then the smaller bone dwellers, and at last colonies of bacteria. A whole slow succession of life rising from a single great body in the dark. The right whale carries upon its head pale patches of roughened skin, the callosities, and these are made to look white by great numbers of tiny pale creatures, the whale lice, that live upon them. Against the whale's dark skin, these patches stand out brightly, and because the pattern of callosities on each whale's head is unique and unchanging, researchers can recognize individual right whales across their whole lives by these markings, as if reading a name written in the skin. How a whale finds its way across thousands of kilometers of open and featureless sea, returning year after year to the same hidden lagoons and feeding grounds, remains one of the great quiet mysteries. The whales seem to carry within them a map built of many things at once. The pull of the earth's magnetism, the slope of the seafloor, the memory of journeys made before, all woven into a sureness of direction that guides them, generation after generation, along the ancient roads of the sea. A whale's calf stays close to its mother through the long first part of its life, swimming in the gentle current beside her great body, a position that lets the smaller animal be carried along. In the flow she creates, saving its strength. Mother and calf often touch and stay near, and the bond between them is one of the tenderest sights in the sea. The small whale shadowing the large one across the wide ocean, learning the ways of its kind by following close behind. Across the wide oceans, the sperm whales gather into great clans, each clan sharing its own pattern of clicks, its own dialect, learned and passed along rather than born into the whale. Two sperm whales of the same clan may recognize one another by their clicking speech, even if they have never met, while whales of different clans keep to their own kind. In the lightless deep, belonging is spoken in rhythm, a quiet code of clicks carried through the dark. The teeth of a toothed whale are not made for chewing. An orca or a sperm whale seizes and grips its prey with its teeth, but swallows its food whole or in large pieces. For whales do not chew as we do. The teeth are tools for catching and holding, and in some whales they barely show at all. The narwhal, strangest of all, has almost no working teeth in its mouth, its great tusk having become something else entirely, a sense organ rather than a weapon for feeding. Let us return, as the night settles, to the blue whale where we began, the greatest of them all, moving slowly through the cold and open sea. Its heart beats slowly in the dark. Its great breath rises now and then in a tall column of mist against the grey horizon. Its low call moves out through the water for hundreds of miles, slow and patient, searching the vastness for another of its kind, somewhere far away beneath the same wide ocean. And all across the world's seas tonight, the whales are moving. The humpbacks are singing their long, evolving songs in the warm and distant waters. The sperm whales are hanging upright in the dark, asleep in their silent clusters. The narwhals are drifting beneath the Arctic ice, their tusks feeling the cold currents. The orcas are gliding in their close families through the night. The bowheads are moving slowly beneath the ice, as they have for 200 years. There's nothing now that you need to do, nothing to follow, nothing to hold. Only let the great shapes pass softly through the dark water beneath you, vast and patient and unhurried, while the slow tide breathes in and out against some far and quiet shore. The whales move on through the deep. Their songs fade gently into the distance. The cold currents carry them slowly onward through the night. Moonlight rests upon the water. The waves rise and fall. A great breath rises somewhere far away and is gone. Only the dark sea now. Only the slow swell. Only the whales drifting on through the silent deep. Drifting, quiet, gone.